Oh, she's gonna clean up real nice. Oh, baby.
On this week's episode of What Did the Rust Daddy Bring Me to Work On? We've got this 1967 Chevy BelAir Station Wagon. What a boat, but boy is this thing straight. And along with how straight it is, look at that perfect patina. This thing is in phenomenal shape, with the exception of just a few little rust areas. Welcome back to the Rust Wrangler channel. Now this car is believed to have been sitting for just over 30 years. There's a bunch of documentation in here, and along with that there's this thank you card, which would be the original from the dealership that this car came from, which is super neat. And all of the documents in here have the same name on it up until the point that it was parked, which means this could very well be a one-owner car. Now let's take a little peek inside here. The seat's looking a little rough, but everything else for the most part looks very complete. Nice gauges, stereos there, and what's this? It looks like we may have AC. We've got the beauty rings in here. There's a bunch of the boxes that the documentation is in, and a couple old parts. And in the back here, it looks like just the panels for back there, and possibly on that tailgate. And looks like we might have a couple mirrors back there. So I pulled one of those mirrors out, and let's go ahead and see if we can figure out how these would mount on here. We've got the little bracket on the fender here. I believe this would just slide down here like this and loop right on there. And then you can slide this down, and it should sit right on that trim. You can go down as far as you want, I guess. Tighten up your little doohickey here. So there you go. Tow mirrors. That sticks way out there. It's pretty neat. I don't know if I've ever seen those before. And it's got, I didn't grab them both, but it's got one on that side, and you're able to put one on this side too. Now this side, on the driver's side here, they got the bracket farther back, and I'm assuming that's so that the driver could just look through the windshield at that mirror. Well, let's go ahead and dive under this hood. Let's pop this thing open and see what we're working with. Wow, it actually looks pretty clean. There's the AC unit in here. Now this car is rocking the 283 V8 with a 3-speed manual on the column. Here's the AC unit. I don't think we're going to be too worried about that. I'd like to just focus on getting this thing running and driving if possible. Let's take a peek at what our oil looks like. That looks pretty good. It's right about here, nice and dark, and way past the full line. Okay, off to a good start. Oh yeah, smells like there's a lot of fuel in there. That's all right, we're going to be draining that out anyways. Let's see if we have any coolant in here. Absolutely dry. I don't know why I would expect anything less. And let's take a peek under this air cleaner. Oh wow, that is a tiny little 2-barrel carburetor. I am thankful that the air cleaner was still on there. I'm hoping that maybe this thing will just run without having to pull this carb, but I think that might be wishful thinking. Either way, I think we'll start with the basics, and let's see if we can get this thing to spin over by hand. If it doesn't, we'll pull the plugs. If it does, we'll throw a battery in here and try the key. Okay, let's grab a hold of this fan here. Oh boy, it's just spinning in the belt, so I'm going to have to, oh boy. It doesn't seem like it wants to spin. Oh, nope. It don't spin. That's a good start. So we might as well roll right into removing these spark plugs. These plugs on this side actually look really good. Not obviously brand new looking, but they look like they were burning pretty well back when this thing was probably running. So I'm just going to do a quick cleanup on those. I'm going to go ahead and pull that other side as well, just because I think we should look at all of them. Well, it's a good thing I pulled this side. This side's looking a little rougher than the other side. We got this one here. It's got a bunch of gunk on it. And this front one, and the number one cylinder, is pretty covered in junk. Now before we try to spin it over again, let's do the usual and put a little bit of Marvel in each cylinder. We'll let it sit for a few, and then we'll try to spin it over again with the plugs out. Each cylinder has Marvel in it now. Let's go ahead and see if we can do the spin test again. Whew! Wow, that thing is quite locked up. Now I may not have mentioned this, but I am on a little bit of a time budget with this car. So we're going to skip a few steps and just go ahead and throw a battery in here to see if it'll crank over. Now this is not the correct battery for this car, but it'll do in a pinch. I'll just have to have it kind of cockeyed. And we should be able to make something work. I have not put power to this car yet, but there is a key in the ignition right now. So battery's hooked up, plugs are still out. Let's see if it turns over on its own. I have lights on the dash. Oh, it does turn over. Spins free, no problem. Wow, that was easier than I thought. So it turns over, but what else does it do? Let's crank this key on. I can hear we got a blower motor for the heater. We got an oil and a generator light on the dash. Does the horn work? It did work for a minute. How about stereo? No stereo. Wipers? The wipers don't appear to be working. Let's see if we can break them free. Nope. Alright, that's okay. How about lights? We do have headlights. Nice. Let's see if the high beam, low beams work. Yeah, they do. Awesome. No blinker lights. And apparently no tail lights either. That's a bummer. So she turns over, but does it have spark? No spark. So you know what that means. We got to pull this distributor cap, rotor, and do what's almost a given on any of these rigs that have been sitting. We got to clean these points. Now this has got one of those funky deals, just like the 74 C10 that we did not long ago. And it's got an enclosed little housing for the points to sit in here. It's going to be tough to get to. I may have to pull it off of the distributor here, but I'm almost certain that that's going to be our problem as far as getting spark. Now a surefire way to tell if we're actually getting power out here is by putting your screwdriver in by the points here, touching the body of the distributor, and if you get sparks like I am here, you know we're getting power in there, which almost 100% means that these points just need to be cleaned up, and we should be able to get spark after that. So I've got the points pulled out here. It comes out as a unit, and if you can see, right in here is where the points are, and they're all green and crusty. Now all we got to do is separate them from the body here, shove a little piece of sandpaper in here, just like so, and then as long as we're still getting white chalky stuff on our sandpaper, we just keep going. I think I got her pretty close. The last swipe, there's almost no color on it anymore. What I usually do then is I clean it off with a little bit of air and brake cleaner. Yeah, it dries up super quick. Probably should use an electronics cleaner if you have it. So I got the points all cleaned up. Let's see if we can get some spark out of it now. I believe we've got spark now. I went ahead and threw the distributor cap and rotor back on. Now that we know we have spark, I cleaned up the plugs and re-gapped them. Let's go ahead and throw these plugs back in here. All right, plugs are back in. Plug wires are all installed. Let's go ahead and try to fill this bowl here and see if this thing fires off for us. Here goes nothing. Wow. Okay. One thing I didn't do that I should have is pulled this fuel line, because I need to make sure it's not pulling old fuel from the tank and dumping into this carburetor here. So I'm just going to leave it open here for a minute. I don't know if it's pumping yet. Yep, it's pumping. That's awesome, but oh, it actually does not smell too awful bad. I'm going to just hook that back up. That looked pretty good. Boy, that would be great if I didn't have to go through the fuel system. There's no guarantee that this carburetor's going to work the way I need it to, but I guess we'll find out. It doesn't sound like it's pumping any fuel from the bowl into the carb. Yeah! Woohoo! Yeah! Well, I just got back from having dinner with the family. So before I left, this thing pretty much just fired, didn't really run. It is pumping fuel. I don't know how good the fuel is, but I'm going to give it another shot here. I did look in here, and it is squirting fuel into the carburetor here from the bowl. I would really like to try to get it fired up without having to use any spray or anything. There it is. It's idling on its own. Okay, it was idling on its own. That was way better than right before I left. It seems like the carburetor may need to be rebuilt. Let's see what we can do here. Yeah! Woo-hoo! Okay, it does take some throttle. It was spitting all kinds of stuff out of the exhaust here. Let's fire this thing up again. I'm going to see if I can blow the cobwebs out of this carburetor by putting my hand over the top of it to get it to just kind of suck the junk through. Sometimes that works, and if it does, that would be awesome. I really would rather not have to go through this carburetor if I don't have to. Whoa! I'd say that cleaned the pipes a little bit. Now, since it seems to be sitting here idling, I normally don't do this until a little bit later. But I think I might throw some coolant in there now. That way I can get a little bit of heat in this motor before I drain the oil. Hopefully it holds. This thing's running great now. I can't believe it. She's a real sweetheart. I'm thinking maybe we can kill two birds with one stone here while it's running. I'm going to jack the back end off the ground, and let's see if this thing will go into gear for us. The clutch feels like it's got some issues. It sticks down on the ground, but let's at least see if it does anything. Okay, I've got the back end jacked off the ground here. I'm going to hop over in the driver's seat there, and let's throw it into gear, see if we'll get moving out of these rear wheels. Okay, this side's turning. Is the other side turning? Alright, I had wheels turning on the driver's side. We're on the driver's side now. There you go. We got turnage of the wheels. Obviously there's some problems with this clutch. It's slammed all the way down to the floor, but the transmission does engage. And this engine is still sitting here purring like a kitten. Coolant level's sitting pretty good still. I had to fill it up a little more when the thermostat opened up. I can't believe how well this thing's running. I'm going to go ahead and shut her down and get ready to drain this oil. Now we're getting ready to change the oil and filter. The filter that we got is this old style cartridge filter. And I was kind of thinking there's no way, but after looking underneath here, that's exactly what this thing has. So it is the right one. So let's go ahead and drain this pan and pull that oil filter housing off of there. There she goes. And with the extra heat in that motor, it should drain real nice and fast. And now for the filter housing. Oh, that's tighter than I thought. There we go. And there it is. So here's the old filter. And as you can see, it is the cartridge style. I may want to clean the bottom of that out because it looks pretty dirty. Well, let's go throw it back up there. That should just go right in there. And screw right back in. Get her snugged up. I would assume it doesn't need to be too awful tight. I've got the drain plug back in. So I guess we're ready to fill this thing up with oil. Now on these motors, these older motors, you fill the oil right here. Now if I get this cap off, it'd be a little easier. On the newer motors, you usually fill them right on the valve cover. Come on. That puppy's on there. So I wasn't able to get the oil in the motor last night. My fill tube the cap was so stuck, I ended up kind of wrecking it there, and it's still stuck on there. So I ended up just pulling it just now out of the intake, just from the bottom. Let's get oil in here. I want to fire it back up after that so we can get that to circulate, and then we can move on to the clutch and the brakes. That ought to do. All right, let's go ahead and fire it up, get this oil circulating here. Wow, this thing's running great. All right, I'm going to shut her off now and check the oil level again. We'll let it settle a second, and then we'll recheck that oil level, top it off if need be. Oh yeah, we got to add some more. Check one more time here. All right, I think we're good. So as I start to work on the clutch and the brakes, right now both pedals go down at the same time, which kind of leads me to believe that all the crustiness and moisture that's gotten up here where the pedals hook up to the rod Need some penetrating lubricant. I'm going to work on trying to get these pedals to both run freely on their own and not together. And then we'll start working on the clutch and the brakes separately. Well, there's absolutely no brakes on this thing. That thing is tight. So I worked the two pedals back and forth quite a bit. I think I may need to do a few adjustments on the clutch, which would be right there. And that's fine. But I think I'm going to tackle the brakes first here a minute. So let's pop that open and see what it looks like in there. Empty in the back and very little in the front. Yikes. Now, as you can see, there's a block right here on the rear reservoir, which is most likely for these old style trailer brakes, which is unhooked right now. Since it's empty, and I think I'll have to bench bleed it anyways, I might pull that out, and then we'll bench bleed this master. I'm hoping this thing is okay, but I'm not going to cross my fingers, because usually when they're sitting this long dry, the seals inside dry up and won't pump fluid anymore. But we're going to give it a shot either way and see what happens. Thankfully, I was able to get these two lines off of the master with a little bit of heat and penetrating fluid. They broke free pretty easily. These things will snap if they've been sitting this long and they're all rusty looking like this. So I've got the master all set up to bench bleed here, and this should do two things for us. For one, it should let us know if each of these are pumping, that the master will probably work for us. And two, we'll be able to get it bench bled at the same time. So I'm going to go in and pump the pedal now. Let's see if we get fluid through both these lines. We're getting the front one. I don't see anything out of the back. Oh, there she comes. Yes, I think this master is actually going to work. Wow, that's amazing, actually. Just like that, all the air bubbles are pretty much gone. You rarely come across this where the master is still decent. I'm ready to throw these lines back on and bleed out each corner. I always like to take the bleeders out first and make sure they're free and clear of debris. A lot of times, if these things have been sitting in a field or in the mud, they'll have a bunch of junk stuck in them, and this one actually does. It's coming out the end here. I'll throw it back in and start bleeding on that corner. I'll just work through each corner. Well, that brake bleed couldn't have gone any better. All the bleeders came free, the master worked, looks like I overfilled it. They all bled out super well. And we now have a solid pedal. It's pretty rare that that happens, everything works with the brake system, but I'll take it. So now, as long as I can figure this clutch out, we're about ready to hit the road. So I've been messing around with the clutch, and I think I got it. I had to adjust that rod way down there to the point where it was making contact with the clutch plate, and just backed it off just a tad. And we'll go ahead and test that out here in just a second. One other thing, I think I got the brake lights working, and wouldn't you know it, it was just some corrosion on the fuse. Let's go ahead and test that out. So brake pedal, yeah, there we go. You see that? We got brake lights. Now I'm going to hop in here and fire it up, and let's see if we can engage these rear wheels. All right, clutch in, and there we go. She's in gear. Reverse. Yeah. How about that? Everything's working. I think we're ready to stab this thing out on the road. Before I drop this thing down on the ground, let's take a look at this air filter. It's amazing how good of shape that thing is in yet. So I'm just going to throw that right back on. I want to do a quick check to see if the alternator is charging. Oh wow, 15 volts. Might be a bit of an overcharge, but we'll roll with that for now. Well, let's give this old girl a drink. Throw some jewelry on her. And hit the road. Now, if you've ever heard the term cream puff when describing a car, this is it. This thing literally went so well. This was a textbook will it run. Although, we do still have to take it for a drive, so let's do that. So the drive went extremely well. This thing actually performs and drives almost like it would have back in the day. I still can't believe how well this thing came together. They're not all like that. It's a real treat when you come across one like this. It runs great, drives great, and what a beautiful car. Let me know what you thought of the mic. If that worked better, I'll keep using it. I am going to upgrade to a better one, but for now, I'll have to go ahead and try to use this one. I appreciate you guys watching. Once again, please like, comment, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you on the next one.